they made progress with the strike?
They're picketing right now, so I think it's the early stages. I would think it might take a little bit with this one.
When someone crosses the writer strike, that's some dirty shit. They cross the picket line.
Yeah, I haven't seen anybody doing that yet.
I think Ellen did. I had a buddy of mine who was writing on Ellen. Everybody kind of knows now what she's really all about. And that's another one of those. Like, press. I'm so nice and I'm so sweet. Mean behind the scenes.
Ellen DeGeneres should be able to afford better secrets given her wealth, but Joe Rogan merely opened the vault as if it were his protein smoothie in the morning. What do you get when America's favorite dancing daytime queen is targeted? By Mr. Podcast Truth Serum? A delicious truth bomb that will make your coffee shiver. If you thought Ellen was simply sunshine and cushions, think again. Joe has receipts, and the studio audience doesn't have them.
Yeah, but don't hate on the people who are doing it. That's why you're in that position.
Did you see what Ellen did? This is really, really kind of funny. She said, being stuck here in quarantine is like being in prison. I haven't changed my clothes in days, and everyone's gay. It's funny.
It's funny.
It's funny. And she got attacked. Do you think this is prison? My grandmother died. You're living in a mansion. That kind of. But I think it's probably partly because that guy came out and said, hey, Ellen is mean. Post your stories about Ellen being mean.
Did you see the stories?
After telling everyone to be kind, Ellen DeGeneres did everything in her power to authority to ensure that no one ever takes that advice seriously again, because nothing says charity like scaring your interns by firing them for chewing gum and feeling the warmth of a broken self-checkout machine.
Changes at the Ellen Show after multiple allegations that it was a toxic place to work. 3 top producers have now, quote, parted ways. But the horror stories keep coming. One guest on the show telling Inside Edition that she was told, whatever you do, don't be funnier than...
Now, Joe Rogan, the universe's favorite crazy uncle with a podcast, seems to have made the decision because you can only watch someone dance on TV for so long before realizing they're merely diverting your attention from a human rights violation taking place in the green room. He's had enough of Ellen's midday dictatorship. To be honest, Ellen DeGeneres' talk show was more like a low-budget psychological thriller than a happy-go-lucky celebrity playpen. Her chords might as well have been printed on them beneath those twinkly blue eyes as she smiled for the cameras or got emotionally waterboarded. A stress ball shaped like the aspirations and hopes of an irate assistant.
It's like a beautiful name, Isis.
Ellen's rough.
Ellen is like an old,
but it's a rough one now.
It's a rough one now because she was running Abu Ghraib in the back of her show. That's a rough one. She's out there dancing with Kristen Bell, and in the back, there's people that are getting up on the rack like this.
It's so weird when you see, like, a lot of people saying that someone who seems so nice is not nice at all.
She doesn't seem nice, but that's people have a very poor judge of character. She doesn't seem nice. It seems...
Or Joe Rogan, who usually only discusses MMA fighters, UFO believers, and the occasional mushroom on his podcast. Now that the induced dimension traveler has trained his mental sniper scope on Ellen, it's more satisfying than seeing a flat earther attempt to use a pancake to explain gravity.
Situation. Yeah. You know, people found out that Ellen was mean, and all these people came out and said, Ellen's actually a bitch. And everyone, I can't believe it. And she lost everything. She fell apart, disappeared, because people found out that this character that she was portraying in a half an hour on a television show is not really who she was. My buddy Greg, who was one of her writers, was like, she's a piece of shit. And he was like, she's a...
Here's the thing. Ellen wasn't just a bad boss. She was the final boss of passive-aggressive tyranny. Her show's workplace culture was so toxic, it made a Chernobyl tour look like a wellness retreat. And Joe Rogan, with his UFC-honed nonsense radar, decided it was time to take the gloves off. He shredded that Be Kind branding like it was a spinach wrap and launched it straight into orbit. Now, Joe may not have a PhD in workplace ethics, but even he could tell that Hollywood's favorite labradoodle was secretly running a daytime sweatshop. Ellen's public persona? All soft lighting and good vibes, like a comforting hologram. But try to get close, and boom, you short-circuit from the sheer artificiality. Her brand of kindness came with conditions, a camera angle, a time limit, and absolutely no eye contact. And the horror stories? They flowed like kombucha at a Malibu drum circle. Staffers allegedly punished for speaking to her. That don't look Ellen in the eye rule, so intense it made staring at a solar eclipse seem safer. One employee was fired after taking medical leave. Another was warned to expect retaliation for reporting harassment, because nothing says fun-loving daytime Queen like weaponized HR policies and a no-smile zone behind the scenes.
Morning to you, Hedda. What do you think of the news? Has this come as a shock?
Hi. No, not a shock at all. The viewers have spoken. Her ratings have been in the toilet for a long, long time now. Her show has not been fun. It has not been interesting. And she's not really, by the way, stepping down. The viewers fired.
Meanwhile, Joe Rogan's over here letting people ramble about DMT and elk meat for 3 hours straight. And no one's getting fired for blinking too loud. The irony is delicious. Joe, a guy who once interviewed someone convinced Atlantis is buried under a Costco, somehow comes out looking like the emotionally stable one in this comparison. Ellen's show? A masterclass in duality. Smiles in the spotlight, silent screams backstage. If Willy Wonka's chocolate factory doubled as a psychological torture chamber, it would still be less confusing than the vibe behind her glittery curtain. And here comes Rogan, casually calling it out. Let's stop pretending this was a talk show utopia and start talking about how she turned it into the Stanford prison experiment, just with better lighting. He didn't even need a monologue. Just pointed at the obvious contradiction. The woman who built an empire on kindness allegedly couldn't muster basic decency for her own staff. That's not just hypocrisy, it's Olympic-level self-sabotage in athleisure. Then, as a final insult to reason, Ellen wrapped up her last episode with a monologue about gratitude and personal growth. Because apparently, gaslighting your employees for 19 years is just part of the healing journey. Meanwhile, Rogan's dropping F-bombs and flexing, yet still manages to be less toxic.
People that are like that all the time, it doesn't seem nice. It's very forced. And whatever, you're allowed to be a bitch, right? You're allowed to be a bitch. You're allowed to be nasty to people. You're accomplished. You're a comedian. You did the whole thing. What you're not allowed to do is have a Guantanamo Bay situation in the backstage of your show where everybody's walking around afraid for their life, and it's like Abu Ghraib where they're hooked up to wires and they
Dogs
have like
around them.
Yeah, she's got dogs and hoods. If an intern's late, they have a hood on. I don't support that.
Ellen used to end every show with a sweet little send-off. Be kind to one another. Adorable, right? Until you realize it wasn't a sign-off, it was a threat. Be kind, or I'll haunt your dreams and revoke your parking validation. Meanwhile, over on the Joe Rogan Experience, the man's podcast might be a swirling vortex of bro science and conspiracy theories, but you never hear, hey, don't look Joe in the eye or he'll absorb your aura. That brand of mystical menace, pure Ellen, queen of passive-aggressive island. Let's not forget the guests. If you were an A-lister, it was all glitter, gift baskets, and a mandatory dance-off. But if you were a rising nobody, or worse, a crew member, good luck. Your prize might be Russian roulette with your lunch break, or finding yourself locked in a supply closet with a post-it that reads, "Smile more." And the kicker? Even Joe Rogan, who once hosted a show where people ate bugs for prize money, looked at Ellen's workplace and went, damn, that's harsh. Because Ellen didn't just make mistakes, she crafted them. There was a precision to her cruelty, a vibe like she was method acting for a Pixar villain. Every allegation, every teary-eyed staffer told the same story. A workplace built like a funhouse mirror, where every warm smile had a quiet threat hiding in the reflection.
I'm sorry, like they're gonna find the thing if you don't go away. You gotta have a good run, and then when you have a good run, you step back and you go, okay, I'm still gonna do my thing, but like I'm not. I mean, there's only a few jobs in entertainment, right?
Right.
So I think a lot of the cancel culture shit is probably these motherfuckers want those jobs.
Ooh.
They're like, how long is this bitch gonna be dancing? I can dance with Hillary Clinton. I could do the Charleston with Henry Kissinger, whatever the fuck she does out there.
The Charleston, is that what it is?
She goes out there to the Charleston. She's got war criminals. Her and Bush are jumping around. I mean,
That's right. She was buddies with Bush. That was like
she's
one of the
a
first
CIA.
You could be doing your job flawlessly, but if you breathe too loud near Ellen's salad, fired. Asked for a day off? Fired. Had an aura she didn't vibe with? Fired. Working for her was like playing Minesweeper with your livelihood. Joe Rogan isn't exactly the poster child for nuance, but when he's calling out your nonsense, that's not a red flag. That's a flashing neon billboard. And somehow, even from the comfort of his soundproof podcast dome, Joe's take cut through, more authentically than all 19 seasons of Ellen's manufactured sunshine ever did. Remember Ellen's big comeback tour of empathy? The one where she kind of apologized with the emotional depth of a teenager caught stealing vape pens? That performance had the conviction of a damp cardboard box. And Joe? He just laughed, kept talking, No PR team, no tear-stained redemption arc. He's not pretending to be your bestie. He's not offering you herbal tea while dialing security because you sneezed. What you see is what you get, a walking protein shake with a mic and zero filter. Ellen, on the other hand, built a brand on faux empathy, weaponizing smiles and shoe giveaways like a discount Oprah with a mean streak. And now, it's all unraveling, one pre-written punchline at a time. Awkward, over-rehearsed, and just a little bit sad.
What do you think will happen to her now?
Well, I'd like to see her work on a farm where she can relate with all the animals and the pets and the dogs and the cows and the pigs, because she can relate to animals far more than she does with people. I was not able to have any connection with her, make any eye contact. And here's the thing, it's not just me or three of us. There were over 100 employees over the 19 years that walk away with this sickened feeling, about working there. As much as I loved my job as a booker and producer, I was almost relieved when I got fired, because it was like I want to take a shower. It was like a whole new dawn. So I don't feel that she has the trust anymore of the viewer.
Joe Rogan just pointed at the Emperor's new clothes and laughed. Hard, because underneath all that vegan positivity and designer cardigans was a boss who made Gordon Ramsay look like Mr. Rogers. Ellen's empire didn't crumble from one scandal. It collapsed under the weight of its own ego. And when Joe Rogan, a man who talks about bear attacks like they're bedtime stories, calls you aggressive, it might be time to rebrand. Let's talk receipts. Her producers were accused of fostering a culture of harassment. There were investigations, resignations, and one dimly lit apology video that looked like Cruella de Vil doing PR with a ring. Light and a teleprompter held at gunpoint. Rogan didn't need to dramatize a thing. The facts were already screaming. A dozen former employees came forward. That's not coincidence. That's a full Yelp review with emotional baggage. Meanwhile, Ellen was grinning on camera, dancing with A-listers, and acting like she wasn't mentally shanking anyone who dared ask for a raise. Audiences started to catch on. The guests didn't look thrilled anymore. They looked like they were serving a court-ordered sentence on Celebrity Rehab Daytime Edition.
Stephen Paddock, and do not ask me for sources, but Stephen Paddock.
Who's that?
He was the guy that shot up the Vegas concert. That was a very tragic thing. Listen to this. The only guy that saw Stephen Paddock alive, his name is Jesus Campos. He was a guard at Mandalay Bay. He got interviewed nowhere else. You know where he got interviewed in the beginning? Ellen.
Really?
Weird. And then they went on, if you could find that clip, they went on with a weird diagram of how it happened, and Ellen's showing the people how it happened. Not like an emotional, how are you feeling, how are you holding up? It was a weird diagram of and then he went to the left and to the right. It was very strange to, look, what the hell's going on? This is a daytime.
Rogan could have ignored the Ellen drama, but he didn't. Because even the king of carnivore diets has a limit when it comes to fake nice bosses running their workplaces like covert CIA black sites. You know, Ellen's PR team was sweating through their fair trade hemp shirts the second Joe brought it up. This wasn't some dainty influencer you can cancel with a tweet storm. Joe Rogan is basically a walking, talking Reddit thread, unfiltered, unscripted, and completely uncancelable. And Ellen, she walked straight into it. She can't respond, because responding would mean admitting that maybe, just maybe, years of alleged workplace toxicity can't be smoothed over with a forced smile and another round of who's in the box. Joe didn't go after her for clout. He doesn't need the bump. The man has a $200 million Spotify deal and an audience that'll gladly listen to him interview a guy who eats dirt and lives in a van. This wasn't strategy. It was personal. A direct hit on the grand illusionist of daytime TV. Because Ellen wasn't just a bad boss. She was the final boss of hypocrisy. She built an empire on sunshine and filled her studio with storms. Rogan didn't expose her. He just flipped the switch and let everyone see the mold behind the paint.
Now she's got an antenna from someone's Buick that she's popped off and she's using it as a pointer.
But why the hell is this happening on a daytime show where this is weird?
Where'd she get that pointer?
I don't know. She stole it off an intern's car.
Why wouldn't you just use your finger? If that was you, if it was your show, the Tim Dillon show, wouldn't you just point?
Yeah.
This is also a giant screen behind her, so they could have just put it on that screen.
So, but she's using this thing. I find it very strange. I don't know why.
Oh, and a quick tip. If you ever find yourself on a show that gives you free sneakers but tells you not to make eye contact with the host, run. Fast. Even Joe Rogan would back you up on that one. Now, let's be clear. This isn't about roasting someone just because they smile a lot or love a good dance break. It's about accountability. We all deserve a boss who's less silent assassin and more actual human being. But Ellen? She somehow turned what should have been a cozy, feel-good daytime hug into a tense hostage negotiation with jazz hands. And Joe Rogan calling her out? That was the ultimate boss-level mic drop. Ellen's fall wasn't shocking. People whispered, behind closed doors for years. But the world wanted to believe the illusion. It's easier to ignore the toxicity when your favorite daytime queen is handing out puppies and gift cards on air. But Joe's spotlight isn't some soft studio glow. It's a floodlight, and it exposed every crack in the foundation. What's left? A canceled show, a tarnished empire, and a legacy that whispers, smile, but don't expect me to care. Meanwhile, Joe's podcast keeps rolling on, chaotic, unpredictable, and brutally honest. And maybe that's the point. Sometimes the best way to deal with a manufactured smile is to call out the teeth behind it. So next time you hear someone say, be kind, pause and ask yourself, are we talking Ellen kind or Joe kind? Because one comes wrapped in hugs and hidden daggers. The other just hands you a mic and says, speak your truth. And honestly, the world could use a little more of that.